Michael, Theresa May called Mr Trump divisive, unhelpful and wrong. Our Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson, said he was, quote, out of his mind. How should the UK government approach the Trump administration?
Crawling on its belly, I think. I mean, it is. No, I mean, it's just so short-sighted. You know, when either the Republicans or the Democrats are going to win an election, and I can't remember when these remarks were made, whether Trump was already the candidate or whether he was one of a number of possible candidates. But in any case, it was extremely ill-advised to make these remarks.
Theresa May's was 2015, so it was quite early on. But
quite
even so,
I don't know to what extent Donald Trump has thought this through, but appearing with Nigel Farage in the way that he did has been a huge humiliation to the British government and has put them on the back foot. So that, Theresa May can't win. If she says she'll cooperate with Nigel Farage and use him as an intermediary, she is humiliated. If she says that she's not going to use him, then, of course, she looks as if she's being kind of vindictive or whatever.
Should she use Mr Farage? He seems to have a special relationship, even if Britain doesn't.
And it will be a long time before we do. And I'm sure that the lack of foresight that's displayed in these statements by ministers would have been replicated all the way through the ranks of the civil service and the diplomatic service.
Including special advisors.
Yes.
As well. Liz, Mr Trump said that NATO is obsolete and that he admires Mr Putin and the Kremlin. Now, if these views are reflected in his policies, won't the Europeans need to think about the punishment beating they want to give us over the Brexit talks? I mean, we're the biggest military and nuclear power in Europe. They're going to need us.
Absolutely. I think that is, in the negotiations, one of the strongest cards that we have to play. There's real concern on the borders with Russia about the threat that might be posed, and I think that is something Theresa May could use. And I think that her, in understandably needing to build a relationship with the new president, I think her priority should be actually working with European leaders to try and get the best deal. And I think that defence issue is one of the strong cards that we have to play.
Let me just say that the leaders of Western Europe are wholly unrealistic about defence. They live in another world. They do not understand that we are defended only by the American umbrella. Even Britain's defence spending is puny by comparison with what is needed. And what do the French in particular dream of? They're dreaming about a European army. They're dreaming about getting rid of America. They want to establish a Europe which is America-free. They live in cloud cuckoo land, and I had to struggle with these people during the 2 years that I was Defence Secretary.
See, I'm not sure Mr Trump wants to deal with Europe, but I think he may want to deal with Britain. I stayed on after the election. I saw a number of Trump people, including those who are involved in the transition. They told me that he's not just pro-Brexit, that he wants to help Britain in the Brexit talks. He wants to help smooth the path. They also say he wants to do a free trade deal with Britain. And the reason he wants to do that is to show that he's not against free trade. He's just against free trade that hits ordinary Americans, blue-collar workers in Ohio, which a British free trade wouldn't do. Is there an opportunity for us here?
Well, there may be. I mean, my biggest fear about Donald Trump is not any particular thing that he said, but of his inconsistency. I mean, I think it's absolutely possible that he'll do different things and say different things on different days.
Yes.
And that there may even be wild oscillations. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we end up with the coldest of cold wars when he and Putin have a row about something.
Finally fall out over something.
And Trump turns it all around. I mean, in the short term, I would say, of course, if you're the American president and you're in favour of Brexit, it suggests you have a pretty dim view of the European Union.
He does.
And that, I think, is quite significant. To go back to my earlier point, that this isn't really about Britain, it's really about the future of the European Union. If you've got an American president who doesn't think much of the European Union, in contrast to previous American administrations that wanted a single telephone number for Europe, this is quite a change of policy.
Well, it's a total change on the traditional State Department and White House policy. Liz, it's not quite appreciated here. I think Trump won on a Keynesian prospectus of a huge unfunded tax cuts, massive infrastructure spending. He's really a mixture of FDR and Ronald Reagan on steroids. I don't think the British political elite or the European political elite have yet realised if he does this, it means a return to inflation and rising interest rates.
Absolutely. As you said, he's got a huge infrastructure plan, tax cuts for people's incomes and for businesses. And, if there is a trade war, which remains a possibility, that will have huge impact. And if you look at what is happening already, we are seeing, the beginnings, I think, of problems in Italy, for example.
And that could be the next crisis?
Which could be the next crisis. Renzi's got his referendum coming up. This will have big implications for our economy as well as our security. And my biggest fear, if I just come in on Trump, is that the people who think he's going to deliver for them will actually be hit the hardest. And if you promise something that you don't deliver, the anger will get worse.
Well, he's promising $5 trillion, I say trillion dollars of tax cuts. But if you do a distributional analysis, 83% of these tax cuts go to the top 20%.
Absolutely.
Indeed, 25% go to the top 0.1%, which I don't think is what they're expecting in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio. But that's an American issue. The implication for Trump is that fiscal policy is now getting looser everywhere. America, Britain, I think, as we'll discover next week in the autumn statement, France, where the deficit's rising, Italy, where it's rising, Spain, where it's rising again, Japan, where it's rising. Looser fiscal policy means tighter monetary policy. That follows as night follows day. That means higher interest rates. I would suggest Mrs. May needs that like a hole in the head.
Yes, I mean, I guess all of that is a little bit down the road. I mean, what we've had for...
Well, Janet Yellen could put the rates up in the Fed in December.
She could begin to put them up. I don't think it would be a dramatic increase. I mean, what we've had for a long time now is inflation very close to zero. We've actually had negative inflation in the European Union. We've tried every monetary trick in the book to try and get our economies moving. It's not surprising, particularly with interest rates where there have been, that countries are saying, well, let's try the old fiscal trick again. Let's try a little bit of inflation. I mean, one of the things that strikes me is we're talking about the crisis of the left. The Republican Party has seen a candidate elected who is not a Conservative and not a Republican. There are some quite interesting implications for them as well.
Yeah, but they're part. Yeah, we were all told this was a crisis for the Republican Party. I would just point out they did win the White House. They won the Senate. They won the House. They control 33 of the governorship offices, 32 of the state legislatures.
Yeah, but to apply...
I think that's not a bad policy of decline.
But to apply the word Republican to all of them, including the president-elect, President Trump, is wrong, because he is very, very different from the people in the Congress and the people in the Senate. So people who fear that, there's now going to be a dictatorship because all of the branches are Republican, that's not right.
No, I understand. What he could do, of course, he will deal with the Republicans to get his tax cuts.
Yes.
And he could well deal with the Democrats to get his infrastructure.
Will they pass the infrastructure? I mean,
Well, we don't know yet. But also, we've run out of time, Liz. I'm sorry.